Hey everybody, welcome back to Muramasa the Demon's Blade. For this episode, we're going to be starting a new game. Again, kind of. Save file might look a little weird because, well, the way I record is kind of odd for this LP. We're going to be starting Kisuke, and if you're smart, you'll notice I've done 3 episodes of Momohime. Because it would take too long to switch in between the two consistently and how none of them interlace with each other, what I typically do is I record a chunk of one character, then a chunk of another character. That way they kind of balance each other out. Don't worry, there's no spoilers in the save file or anything. Now here's Kisuke. Much like Momohime, he has a cold opening. The two have slightly different traits. I wouldn't say big ones, but there is some difference. Also, here's me getting an achievement that I didn't even know existed. I wanted to check out something. I was like, huh, can I examine this barrier? Uh-oh. Achievements. I'm playing this on a PS Vita TV, so that's the only time it's gonna happen. Don't worry, folks. Now, I mentioned before that Vanillaware is a team comprised mostly of artists and secondary of game designers. And I do gotta admit, I love Kisuke's design. Like, he's a ninja, but goddamn, he looks great. I think it's mainly due to the fact that he has the little scarf flowing in the wind like every ninja should. That is great. But in more of a gameplay element, Kisuke is roughly the same as Momohime. The game says that they play exactly like, but I want to... If I had to hazard a guess, it feels like Kisuke is a bit more floatier. When he's swinging the sword, he swings it a little bit faster, and when he's on the ground, he moves a lot faster. He seems to preserve momentum a lot better than Momohime. But I can't tell if it's because of how I play Kisuke or if it's due to internal mechanics. But another thing that we're going to see about Momohime and Kisuke, aside from them being totally different plots, wow, I can't talk today, is that Kisuke and Momohime start on totally different sides of the continent. And much like Momohime, Kisuke has to fight ninjas a lot of the time. However, Kisuke is a bit different in that he has a reason to fight ninjas, which will be explored when he gets to his plot. One other thing about Kisuke, he starts with 2 long swords, and it's fucking agonizing. The reason it's agonizing is that I like to play with the short swords. And since he only has 1 short sword, when that sword breaks, I am stuck in shit city until that thing repairs itself. Now, typically that only matters for this starting part of the game. Once you get past the first segment and can actually forge blades, the two differences kind of meld away. But for this first chapter, Kisuke's is a lot harder. And here is Kisuke's samurai tutorial. Kisuke starts off with 3 different abilities, and they're also different in effects, but not mechanically. One of his abilities is called Celestial Festival, which is a geyser attack, much like the one Momohime has, except it's a bit thinner. Celestial Eve, that's the attack. He also starts with Dual Blaze, a technique Momohime doesn't have. It's just 2 quick stabs with an explosion effect. Now this is a unique encounter that anybody could get, and I was not prepared for it. These are called Woolly Eyeballs. What you're supposed to do is slash at them. You get a lot of EXP for beating them if you beat them all. But also, the best way to do it is to come into this fight with an item crash, and then react to it. If you always have an item crash when you start this thing, you get free EXP, and a lot of it. I also mentioned in the past episode about how color is the one thing Vanillaware uses really well. You see it here in full effect. Much like when Momohime went into a forest and found a dead village, we're going to a wheat field and we find beautiful red hues, as if we're walking into a dusk, or we're walking into the sunset of the night, and it looks really gorgeous. Another technique we saw a while ago was called Cyclone. I never really explained it much, because I rarely use techniques, so oftentimes I won't explain them, but Cyclone is basically Kisuke spinning in place for a good 5 seconds. That is the most overpowered technique in the game, and you get 5 different versions of it. The reason it's so overpowered is because it does like 50 hits and it leaves you fully invulnerable for 5 seconds. It is good. Now here's a unique set of encounters that is frustrating for me for the most part because it introduces a different type of ninja. These encounters are unique in that you could just straight leave. You do not need to fight these when it gives you this big area to fight in and they don't lock you in place. But the thing is, these fights typically introduce the bomb ninja. The bomb ninja sucks because if you get hit with a bomb, it's either a boatload of damage or breaking a sword. And the worst thing about these dudes is if they ever displace, they disappear, and then they reappear, and it's a good 5 seconds for them to come back. I know I'm saying 5 seconds a lot, but it is a really long time of invincibility for them. They're also substantially more aggressive than regular ninjas. Like, they get more hits on me per capita than anything, and it's really annoying. A lot of souls here, too. As I mentioned before, souls are really important in this game, and that's kind of why you want to clear these big fights, because they are often, at the end, become platforming challenges for souls. Here's another one. Ugh. I don't know why Kisuke gets a lot of these, but he does. Compared to Momohime, who typically has the locked-in screen, Kisuke has a lot of open area fights. I can't tell if this was designer intent or it was just done by coincidence, but it happened. One thing I do a lot when I fight in this game is I do a lot of air combos. If any of you have ever played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3, you'll understand that air combos are great because it keeps the enemy unable to act, and that's kind of what you want to do in this game. Because if an enemy acts, it can do things like set you on fire, which is what I am on right now. Being set on fire is a more aggressive form of poison. You take damage over time until it goes away. There's the reason why bombs ninjas are so annoying. If you ever hit them and knock them off balance, they produce revenge bombs, and if you're on the ground, you will be sucked. There's an example of their bullshit invincibility. They could just run away and then just not care. Now, we just saw for a split second something I never really do and forgot to explain in Momohime's video. Enemies that have projectiles such as arrows, fireballs, or ninja stars, if you guard by holding the attack button, you can reflect them back. Now, on items, there is a difference in items in this game. You have two different items. Regular restorative items and food. Food restores health better, but it makes you full, which means you can't really eat more until your hunger meter empties. Then you have Pellish, which reduce less health, but you could use them all at once. So if you find yourself in a spot and you really need a quick spike of health, just eat a bunch of medicine and you're fine. There are also Whetstones, which restore your weapon's HP. Those have no restrictions. And there's one other item that I never use. It's the Smoke Bomb. It just lets you escape from battles. Now, to Kisuke's plot. Another thing is I save before every fight because while I love this game and I've played it, this is going to be my 4th playthrough of this game. I am still not that great at it. So I'm never fully confident in my ability to fight. Because some enemies just have the ability to melt face instantly. Yeah, there is a reason why Kisuke is fighting so many ninjas, because he was once a ninja, and something happened that he's unaware of, and now ninjas are after for his head. He also has amnesia. So the story of Kisuke is that he's trying to figure out what exactly happened to him. You gotta watch out when you're doing cutscenes. I say that And it sounds weird, but oftentimes when you're doing cutscenes, there will be an NPC off screen, and then you'll be like, wait, why isn't the plot advancing? Give me the plot, what's going on? So always look behind you before looking forward. This white ninja right here, oftentimes I would keep forgetting about him and wonder why the plot's not advancing. Man, these ninjas are dicks. Not really motivating if I'm gonna die either way. Why would I tell you anything? Now for this translation of the game, Kisuke is a lot more vulgar. I'd imagine for the Wii release of the game, they kind of toned down his dialogue in order to make him seem more appealable to kids. But man, in the Vita version, he has a foul mouth. And much like every kung fu movie, we have the duel at sunset, and this is gorgeous. And here is Kisuke's boss, the biggest ninja with the tiniest head. This is Kurazoro. He is actually probably the hardest boss in the game for how you start out with, because holy shit, if you don't know what he has, he will fuck you up. Like this attack right here, he has a mix-up game with his pinwheel shurikens. He can throw them up or down, and they also come back, so if you're not expecting them, you will eat a lot of shit. He also has a butt stomp because he's a fat guy, and every fat guy needs a butt stomp in video games. That butt stomp has a shockwave that will break your sword if you're guarding. That right there was his weird two-handed sword attack. It's not threatening at all, even right when I get hit by it. But it does a great job at preventing you from air dashing, which is what I like to do a lot. I really don't like this boss. But he can be juggled. This big guy can be juggled, and it's fantastic. Too bad I dropped the ball. Now, on a little bit of culture things, the pinwheel shuriken is... I don't know if it's a very famous thing, but it appears a lot in any culture that has to do with Japanese movies and stuff, because if you ever see ninjas, they more than often have the pinwheel shuriken. A big example, which is probably going to get me a lot of guff, is Naruto. One of the first episodes, one of the main characters has a pinwheel shuriken. But yeah, if you were looking a while ago, I actually ate a lot of shit from one of his pinwheel shurikens. If he gets you in the air with one of those things, it will fuck you up. Now, if you also notice, he's gone into kind of a powered-up mode. A lot of humanoid bosses have this mode. This is basically their way of saying they're going to be a lot more aggressive, they have new attacks, and they're going to take less damage overall. Like right now, he's doing a lot more of the pinwheel tosses, and a while ago he threw a really big pinwheel shuriken. And then he has this thing, the turbo butt stomp. How do you do this? How's your tailbone still intact? But yeah, if I had to say out of all the bosses, Kurosawa is probably the hardest, just because of how much he brings to the table. And that right there is an example of Cyclone saving my life. If that shuriken hit me, it would have fucked me up, but since I used a special ability, it completely ignored me. Oddly enough, the super butt stomp really easy to dodge if you know that for a fact that it homes on you all the time, so once it comes down, you can just dash and be completely safe. I also should have mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but I'll mention it now. Kisuke's quick draw is different. While Momohime has kind of like a central 3 slashes coming from the center of the screen, Kisuke is just multiple slashes all over the place. I think it's more of a design choice since he's a ninja and doesn't have a traditional technique. We also get the Nagasone Kotetsu. I feel like that's a famous sword. Like, it was used in a movie somewhere, but I don't know why. Now here's the other side of the Fox God coin. This is Yuzuhara. she's a bit more better designed in my opinion. Not egregiously designed, but still has an air of beauty about her. However, Yuzuhara's motives are a bit different than Kongiku. Unlike Kongiku, who has reason, motivation, and drive to help Jinkuro, Yuzuhara has absolutely no reason to help Kisuke, yet she does, and it's never really explained why until the end of the video game. Like it says right here, we exist to fill blades, but there's not a lot of murder lately, so we want you to kill people so we can make swords. That's kind of a load of bullshit. And much like Momohime's story, Kisuke has to go through the same rigmarole of explaining everything at hand. I think what happened was, when they made this game, they made the two plots, but they weren't able to tell which one players would go for first. Like, would they go for Momohime first, or would they go for Kisuke first? So they just made the first episode of both campaigns exactly the same to cover for that. Even the dialogue is roughly the same. Also, for those that are well-versed in kinda theology, I've always wondered something. In this tile set for Muramasa, you'll often see a Buddha statue covered with a blanket. What's up with that? That's one thing I never quite knew about and it always confused me. Why does certain Buddhas get a warm blanket while others don't? I like this line right here because calling these foxes dogs is actually kind of an insult. It's explained somewhat in the game, but in general Japanese culture, the dog and fox are often at ends. It's also kind of a thing in general just because in Europe, dogs are often used to hunt foxes, so it just goes to show that Kisuke is kind of a dick. Yeah, Kisuke's story is more of a story of circumstance. He has had amnesia, he just so happens to know a sword style that is very, very strong, and he also just so happens to have a Muramasa blade. He also just so happens to have a fox companion. He is a man in very strange circumstances. Now here's an interesting joke right here. The legend of foxes is that foxes are very mischievous spirits and they like to transform into humans, interact in society, and pay with fake money in order to get away with certain societal norms. And that was a little poke at that. Kisuke is well aware of the tricks that foxes uses, and he's just like, well, hopefully the sword doesn't become a fucking stick by the time I'm done. I'm showing this cutscene again because, man, I just really like seeing Muramasa. And this is the only time in the game he gets any dialogue except for one other instance. Ironically enough, for a game centered around this guy's name, he has no bearing on the plot whatsoever, aside from being a gameplay MacGuffin. Even then, he still has a really good speech. Now time to get Kisuke some swords. First off, a short sword, because god damn it, I hate long swords. He also gets the Gale Blade. He doesn't start off with much weapons though. Unlike Momohime, his weapon branch is somewhat limited. He still has the Nagasone Kotetsu though, which is going to be our primary blade for Chapter 2. If I were to ever fucking check it. Oh, I know what's wrong. I thought that was a longsword, which is why I was confused. And that's Kisuke 1. Next up, Momohime Chapter 2. See y'all later.